We could use your help keeping the Omaha History Podcast going. Please consider becoming a patron for as little as $1 a month. Go to patreon.com/Omaha. That's Patreon. It'll help pay the light bill.
Welcome to the North Omaha History Podcast with noted author and historian Adam Fletcher Sassy. Each week, Adam takes you on a guided tour through Omaha's dynamic past.
Starting in 1896, the Salvation Army ran numerous facilities in North Omaha. Well, walk us through all those facilities, Adam.
The Victorian era was a time when folks wore high collars, long bloomer dresses, and lots of fanciful things. We wrapped women tight. They weren't allowed to show their arms without permission. You know, it was this kind of sexual repression that kept people buttoned up, dozens of buttons down the fronts of dresses and the backs of dresses and the ankles of boots, because to see anything, to see cleavage, to see ankles, to see wrists, was to imply sexual deviance. In the meantime, people were having sex. Go figure, Steve. They were all over the city. They were all over the country. They were all over the world, doing the WAP everywhere they wanted to. Well, in 1896, the Salvation Army decided that they needed to open a rescue home and maternity hospital in North Omaha. Imagine these well-meaning, well-intended, busy folks out there protecting young women from their own mistakes, from their own accidents, and trying to, instead of to shame them or to otherwise subject them to medical procedures that were unsafe and unwelcomed at that point, they built a home just for them. The first Salvation Army rescue home and maternity hospital was located on North 24th Street. It was at 3704 North 24th. And it was there from 1896 to 1920. During that period, there were more than 300 children that were born in the home to these young unwed mothers, with the idea that they would be adopted out and otherwise put in supportive homes. That house was so important and became so necessary that in 1920 the Salvation Army decided to expand the operation. They opened the Rescue Home and Maternity Hospital in 1920 at 2008 North 16th, right at the corner of 16th and Grace. It was the old mansion of Territorial Governor Alvin Saunders. Saunders had built a big mansion right there and had entertained all kinds of guests. I have a separate article about that on NorthOmahaHistory.com. But in this particular instance, Saunders' widow had bequeathed the mansion to the Salvation Army, and the Salvation Army had built onto it immediately. They built a beautiful new wing that held a lot more beds and a sitting veranda, an outdoor sitting veranda where folks could take in the cool country air that was fashionable at that time. You got to remember, North 16th at the turn of the century wasn't fully urbanized yet. By 1920, there were apartment buildings all along the way and streetcars lining the street, but it was still felt and thought of as kind of a suburban oasis, if you can imagine. By 1921, the facility was described as a home for girls who were incorrigible. These young women got religious training and were, quote, encouraged to start life all over in a new manner. And it went on and on. In 1938, though, the Salvation Army needed to expand again. That year, the Swedish Evangelical Hospital in North 24th at Evans Street, Pratt Street, had closed down. The hospital closed because of the Great Depression. But for the Salvation Army, business was still good. And they moved in 1938. It was a beautiful hospital. It was fully formed, a couple of brick buildings built in an L shape right at the corner of 24th and Pratt. And the Salvation Army stayed there from 1938 to 1967. The building was renamed for Catherine Booth, who was one of the founders of the Salvation Army internationally. And the Booth Memorial Hospital had taken on this former Evangelical Covenant Hospital. It was also called the Home for Unwed Mothers. By the late 1940s, they had rebuilt the facility, and it was growing and growing. One of the things that happened right then, though, in the 60s, was that the facility had lost favor. Mothers were less and less encouraged to give up their babies for adoption when they were born out of wedlock. And there was just changing social trends. But the other thing that had happened, Steve, was white flight. All of the white people in North Omaha who had relied on the services of the Salvation Army, they decided that they didn't want to live in that neighborhood anymore because African Americans had the Fair Housing Act working on their favor starting in 1963, and that was defeating the racism that had dominated Omaha's housing practices for more than 75 years. So African Americans were moving further north, and the Salvation Army didn't want to maintain their facility there. Well, the hospital moved again to South 40th and Dewey Street in 67. The building on 24th and Pratt was actually demolished in the 70s. The building sat empty for several years and was eventually stripped of its copper and piping and different things by vandals. So in the 1970s, the Salvation Army demolished the buildings. In the 80s, they rebuilt it as the North Core Community Center. And today, that building stays at 24th and Pratt. And it's been rebuilt a couple times even since then. An ad that they had in 1964 screamed in the local newspaper and said, "Write or telephone, asking for an interview. Policies and programs are flexible to meet individual needs. All factors are discussed confidentially with the applicant, and arrangements made to give the girl and her baby the specific help that their situation requires. This service is available on the basis of need, regardless of creed, color, class, or circumstances. The spiritual purpose is paramount. We are concerned with the whole person, not just the physical, but also the mental, emotional, social, and spiritual needs as well." In 1978, when the Booth Memorial Hospital had closed on South 40th, right by Dodge Street, they had 4 different locations, 3 of them in North Omaha. Today, there's no sign left of them. When the building was finally demolished in 74, it seemed like the Salvation Army was a little bit resentful. They referred to what happened as a ripoff because they did have plans for the old building. But all the same, it didn't last, and today it's merely North Omaha history. You can learn more about the history of the Salvation Army Hospital in North Omaha by going to northomahahistory.com and searching the term.
Thanks for listening to the North Omaha History Podcast with noted author and historian Adam Fletcher Sassy. Join us next week as Adam takes you on another guided tour through Omaha's dynamic past.